Volume 7 had within it many memorable moments, for one reason or another. Moments such as the death of Clover, something that made a lot of us sad, myself included, not something I would necessarily call a good moment, but something that none of us are going to forget for a very long time. And ever since that episode aired, a lot of people have been pointing to the moment of Clover's death as something being influenced by Qrow's semblance of misfortune. In that moment, Clover didn't have his aura, and so his semblance of good fortune was not active. But Qrow's semblance was. His bad luck affected Clover, and thus he died. Tyrian stabbed him, and I've seen numerous people at that moment say, "Oh no, it's Qrow's semblance. His bad luck got to him." But that just simply isn't the case in my mind, and that's what's leading to today's video. Something that I want to discuss, that being how luck semblances operate in the world of RWBy, or really in general, what luck is, and how Qrow is not responsible in any way for that moment of Clover's death. Yes, luck played a factor in numerous events that led up to that moment, but that moment itself, Qrow's semblance, regardless of how strong his bad luck was radiating at that moment, would not have changed things. Nor would it if Clover had his semblance active. I mean, yes, his aura would have been active and thus the blade wouldn't have went through his body, but other than that, if he did have his good fortune at that time, it still wouldn't have altered events that happened. And I'll get to that in a little bit, but first I want to look at what luck is in general. Now, whether you consider yourself a lucky person, unlucky person, or even if you don't believe in luck at all, the random chance of probability affects us all equally. It's just our perception of events that determines whether an outcome is positive or negative, lucky or unlucky. Take rolling a regular six-sided die, for example. If you throw a dice that is untampered with, unweighted, etc., it has an equal chance, 1 in 6, of landing on any of its 6 faces, with any of those 6 faces landing face up, numbered 1 through 6. So let's say you throw a dice 5 times in a row, and every time it lands face up on 3. Well, there's no consequences associated with that, so you wouldn't necessarily consider it lucky or unlucky, but you might note that it's unlikely to happen. But now, all of a sudden, if you associate something positive or negative with that, then your perception of it changes drastically. Let's say you have a bet with someone where every time you roll a 3, they have to pay you $5. And every time you roll a 5, you have to pay them $5. Okay, you throw the dice 3 times and you roll a 5 3 times in a row. Well, all of a sudden, your wallet's feeling a little bit lighter and you're thinking that you're pretty unlucky. Meanwhile, the other guy's thinking that they're pretty lucky. And if you reverse that and you roll a 3 times in a row, all of a sudden, you got $30 extra, you're feeling on top of the world, wanting to throw that dice again, and your friend is telling you not to do that whatsoever because they don't want to lose any more money. It's all our perception of events, and the more times you throw that dice, the more the true distribution of the probability is actually going to come out in the results. It's the law of large numbers. The more you get closer to infinity of initiating a random chance, the more the true probability of it will show up in the results. So if you roll a dice 1,000 times, even if the first 3 may have came up the same number, eventually it's going to disperse across the 6 outcomes that are possible and pretty much be distributed evenly among them. There are many laws with that that go into the laws surrounding probability. It's something that is essentially a universal law. Now, there are ways to affect the probability by, for example, with a dice, altering the object in and of itself. Weighting the dice, making one outcome much more likely than another, or even 100% likely. If you bet the same person, but you have this weighted dice and you don't tell them, all of a sudden you seem like you're incredibly lucky in their eyes. Meanwhile, it's not luck because you know that you've altered the dice and you know what the outcome is going to be. This is something altering the object. Other things can be altered with skill and experience that a person has at a certain task or what have you to reduce the random chance and increase the probability of a certain outcome that would be beneficial to that person, etc., etc. Now, when it comes to the world of Remnant and the semblances of luck, well, let's just say that in and of itself is something pretty broken. The ability to manipulate luck, manipulate the probability of random chance without affecting the object itself or anything else. Just being able to affect the probability is literally reality breaking. They are bending the laws of reality. Now, sure, you could say that the laws maybe work differently in Remnant, but I have no reason to suspect that that's the case when it comes to random chance and probability, so I'm just going to assume that this is actually what Qrow and Clover's semblances of misfortune and good fortune are doing respectively. Except, in the case of Qrow, he's increasing the probability of something negative happening. And with Clover, increasing the probability of something positive happening. If that all makes sense, and my ramblings sound somewhat coherent, but when it gets to the actual events that we've seen in the series, we can see how it kind of plays a factor. The first time we see Qrow, for example, when he leaves the bar in Volume 3, we see the bartender end up dropping a glass. Now, every time a bartender picks up a glass, it's part of their job, they're going to do it dozens of times in a day, if not more, there's obviously going to be a random chance that, you know, as you're picking up the glass, as you're cleaning the glass, what have you, there's a chance it's going to slip out of your hand. Of course, bartenders, the more experience they have, the less that chance exists, but after being a bartender for a decade or more, what have you, odds are you're probably gonna drop one or more glasses. It happens sometimes. But with Qrow, the action of picking up the glass is going to happen no matter what. Qrow has no effect on the action itself. It's the outcome, the picking up the glass, or cleaning it in the case of the bartender, and it slipping out of his hand. The outcome is something that Qrow manipulates, that he can increase the probability of something negative happening, dropping the glass and having it break. Similarly with Qrow in Volume 4 when he was fighting Tyrian. He actively increased his semblance, and yes, the bartender was passively. I don't think Qrow intentionally meant for the bartender to drop the glass, but against Tyrian, Qrow actively used his semblance to increase the odds of something negative happening to Tyrian. When Tyrian was in the air and going to land on that beam, he was going to land on the beam no matter what. The action that was taking place, Qrow had no effect on, but the probability of that beam breaking at that moment, Qrow did have an effect on. Now, the beam may have broken if Qrow did nothing at all, just let it happen, but he increased the probability of it happening. He used his semblance. I mean, the beam was in a rundown village, it was going to break eventually, but at that key moment, it was something that was bad for Tyrian, and thus Qrow was able to increase the probability of that happening. The outcome of the beam breaking or not was something that Qrow was able to manipulate. Tyrian landing on the beam, that action, was something that he was never able to influence in the first place. You see how I'm getting at a few points here of actions being taken and outcomes? That plays a very key factor into the fight or Clover's actual death. Now, with Clover and his good fortune, we've only been introduced into Clover in Volume 7, so there are, a couple key instances that we have seen and a couple that I'm going to point to. Of course, the Aesop's fight in Episode 3, when Clover made that incredible shot against the Petragigas, wrapping his fishing hook of Kingfisher around its mask and pulling it out of the body that it was within. Now, Clover used his semblance of good fortune to be able to make that shot, but the action of him casting his fishing rod was something that came about because of his skill and experience using it. The making that shot was a combination of his skill, experience, and his good fortune. Because that action was something that you need the experience to be able to take. If you give a complete amateur the same weapon that Clover had, odds are he's not going to be able to make that shot. It's going to go off in some completely different direction, but Clover had the experience enough to be able to make that shot, manipulate it in such a way that it did swing in the right direction to go around the mask itself. But odds are it's probably not going to, hook onto itself so he can pull the Geist out. But it did because of his semblance. The probability of him succeeding was increased by his semblance. Similarly, in the fight with Qrow, Tyrian, and Clover, when Clover made that incredible shot that missed Tyrian but went towards Qrow and just so happened to hit the one hole in Qrow's weapon and disarm Qrow. That was something that was definitely influenced by possibly Qrow's bad luck, but Clover's good luck as well. that, you know, he was able to cast it in the right direction. That's because of his skill and experience, the action, but the outcome of it, that it actually latched on to Qrow's weapon in the way that it did, so that he was able to pull and disarm it, that was something that his semblance manipulated. The outcome is something that Clover had no guarantee on, but the action of casting it, of course he did. So now we get to the actual act of Clover's death. Tyrian actively picking up the sword and stabbing Clover. That is the action. The outcome is Clover dying. To me, it seems like there is absolutely no randomness in the outcome there. Nothing that good fortune or misfortune had any effect on, because Tyrian, being a skilled killer as he is, and in close quarters like that, plus the size of Qrow's blade, it's very doubtful that it would have ended up in a glancing blow or, you know, missed the torso of Clover. So it really seems like Qrow is 100% not to blame for this. So please don't put that responsibility on Qrow. He's got enough on his plate. He doesn't need this too. He probably already blames himself for this, but we don't need the fandom blaming him as well, please. Qrow is not responsible for Clover's death, because in that moment it was Tyrion's actions that resulted in Clover's death. The semblances of good luck can only manipulate the random chance, the random probability that is associated with the outcomes of actions taken, not the actual actions themselves. So as an example, let's once again revisit the dice throwing scenario. You throw a dice, that's the action, and the outcome of it is random. In an unaltered dice, 1 in 6 chance of any one face landing face up. But where's the randomness associated if you pick up the dice and place it down with a specific side that you want facing up in that exact orientation? In my mind, there's not really much randomness in there. Sure, the table could collapse or lightning could strike you down where you stand before the dice gets placed and it ends up differently, but that is such a low probability of those types of things happening that I don't think Qrow and Clover's semblances could actually affect. Because their semblances, although reality warping, which they are, is on a scale that is pretty equivalent, I would say, to other semblances that exist within the world of Remnant. No more reality breaking, I'd say, than, you know, Ruby having an ability of teleportation along with her speed, or Weiss being able to summon monsters to aid her in battle. Those types of things. So although technically reality breaking, not really overpowered to the point where it could literally cause lightning to strike. One instance I do want to say I want to see Qrow's semblance act in is if he activates his semblance in a fight and someone is to, say, you know, about to fire a gun at him. Could he influence it to the point where the gun misfires and explodes in their hand, thus damaging their aura or damaging the person themselves? That seems like something that might be possible. Again, a very low probability of a gun malfunctioning that way, especially since a skilled huntsman or huntress would be keeping up their weapon in good shape, and there's very low likelihood of that happening, but it's a possibility and something that I wonder about. But the actual action of Tyrian picking up the sword was not influenced by Qrow, nor was the action of Tyrian stabbing Clover with it. I take that more akin to someone picking up a dice and placing it down with the side they want facing up, as Tyrian placing the sword through Clover's chest. But let's, for argument's sake, say that Qrow's semblance did play a factor in this action. That raises Qrow's semblance to a level of broken that is ridiculous in my mind. To be able to actively influence another person's actions. Qrow, in this scenario, would be influencing Tyrion's actions of picking up the sword and stabbing Clover with it, thus resulting in an unlucky outcome for Clover. To me, this outcome, sure, it could be considered unlucky, but I consider it more unfortunate, because luck didn't play a factor in it. It's very sad, very unfortunate, but not necessarily unlucky. And if anything, as I mentioned before, the events leading up to this had luck play a factor. For example, Clover making that lucky shot and disarming Qrow. So, unfortunately, if anything, Clover kind of set up this scenario, though it was Tyrian who's responsible for Clover's death. So, Hopefully, throughout all of this, my ramblings make some sense that maybe Qrow can get a little bit less of the blame. Not that people are, saying that Qrow's responsible, but it's just in that moment of seeing the events unfold, people are saying, oh no, it's Qrow's semblance of misfortune that's affecting Clover and having an effect on this. No, the blame's all on Tyrian. Qrow had no influence on it. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to see what you guys think about this. Coming into this video, did you think that Qrow had, or his semblance had some effect on the outcomes of Tyrian stabbing Clover and Clover actually dying? Because, frankly, Qrow wouldn't be activating his semblance consciously at that point, so it's not like a massive amount of bad luck would even be affecting the situation. Sure, Tyrion's still a threat, but Qrow was more focused on Clover, saying, why couldn't you have done the right thing rather than what you were told? And he was more having a heart-to-heart with the guy rather than focusing on, Tyrion, the bigger threat. And frankly, Clover did also attack Qrow, forcing Qrow to, go into survival instincts and fight alongside Tyrion, so Clover did have more of a role to play in his own death than Qrow did. I hate to say it, because I liked Clover's character, and I was really sad when he died, but, looking at it from an outward perspective, that kind of is how it played out. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you haven't already, make sure you vote in the favorite ships poll that is still currently live as of the posting of this video and will be live until midnight tomorrow, February 12th, Eastern Standard Time. We currently have over 2,500 people who have voted, and it's looking actually like a pretty close race. I'm not going to say between who or who's in the top or what have you, but it's different than last year, I'll say that much. We also have the first exhibition match of the Phoenix Festival Tournament coming up this week with Qrow versus his twin sister Raven Bronwyn, which is something I'm really looking forward to analyzing. I hope you guys are looking forward to the Phoenix Festival and all of the videos that I have planned throughout the summer, so hopefully you guys will stick around and watch a few of those. Follow me at Phoenix Knight 7 on Twitter, and I'll see you guys in the next video.